Welcome back, baseball fans. 1974-77 Carryover League. 8th round draft results from the year of 74, and will be the quickest round as there's only about 11 or 12 guys, because it makes sense when you consider keepers are usually kept in the next year, which would be the first year, 74. So a lot of times they were announced with another player more frequently than the other 3 seasons, as seasons tend to look more like the previous season in a carryover league. And it gets progressively, even with the quantity of players, to emphasize that. 8 players in year 1, 6 in year 2, 4 in year 3, and 2 in year 4. Well, with that, let's take a look, and you'll see most of this is just review. Kansas City took Cookie Rojas earlier when they took Amos Otis. So BPA, Otis is better than Rojas. So again, this is not a progression from the best player all the way down to 8. It's more of simply the first or second pick within a year, BPA. So Otis better than Rojas. Rojas was announced earlier. Next, Florida, they announced Don Wilson with their first pick, so they announced Cesar Tovar. Next, the Cubs, they took Billy Williams, and then they were unsure what to do, so they waited till the 8th round, and they found somebody really good in the 8th round. Steve Ranko, on the waiver wire, had a really good Winter Baseball Classic tournament. Starters 7, pitches less innings, under 200, and he's pretty effective. I like the out there and the out there. He really opened eyes through a complete game shutout in the tournament. He has some mystery with the Cubs. He returns to them. All right, Seattle took Jerry Morales earlier when they took Bill Singer. So that's 4 done on 8 pages of this. Vegas, when they added Mel Stoudemire, they also announced Ed Brinkman. Padres took Nate Colbert with their first 74 option. So this time they needed a lefty reliever, and this is a cool situation if you already have a lefty reliever doing the typical thing, and you only need a second lefty reliever who gets righties out better than lefties. That's the case with Luke Walker. So over here, Luke's not too bad at all. Here's where he gets knocked around, but they have another lefty in the bullpen. So between the two, they can play their matchups the way they wish. So San Diego, and a lot of teams now have fortified themselves with the proper comportment of left-handed pitching. All right, Toronto added their outfield platoon of Bradford and Coggins earlier. Cleveland took Clyde Wright out of 74 earlier, so now they needed a utility infielder to play in the middle with Dwayne Kuiper and Frank Duffy. And they found, from a division rival, a guy pushed into retirement, the one and only Ron Hunt, still kicking around here. This is his last year. You don't need to worry about his defense because Duffy and Kuiper can field. Hunt gives you a better option at short than Duffy offensively. And if Kuiper is dealing with a very difficult left-hander, Hunt can help you on that side as well, playing both positions and backing up Buddy Bell at third. Nice value. And they have history. They see this guy every year when he was with the Expos. So Cleveland is quite familiar with Ron Hunt. Okay. Portland added a Griffin and Blomberg the first time around. California finally punched the ticket for Bill Melton to complete their infield. Let's take a look at him. Bill Melton was traded to the Angels, and so he got his nice World Series ring. He still hits plenty of power and walks. He just doesn't field very well. So he's got his World Series ring, and he takes a new challenge to the up-and-coming California Angels. Maybe he can help the White Sox out by having his Angels beat up on the Oakland A's. And Bill Melton did play for the Angels by 1977 anyway. So, next up, Colorado had taken Osteen and Brewer, a couple lefties earlier. The Expos took Willie Davis, Bob Bailey earlier. The Yankees needed a starting pitcher, and they have some old history here in the American League East. They found 37-year-old Sonny Siebert out there on waivers in his final year. It's not too bad. He's a starter 7. You see the card. That's not that bad for a number 4 starter. And he used to pitch for the Red Sox. So they're familiar with the history. Kind of like to see stuff like this happen. Players at least staying in division to face their old team at a certain point. So it'll be Sonny Siebert Floppy Hat Day in Fenway Park later this year. All right, the Cardinals added Reggie Smith and Bob Gibson earlier. The Brewers added John Briggs earlier. And after taking Dave Roberts in the 7th round off of waivers, they found Ron Santo. And looking for work. And he got work as a 2 third baseman. So this is, again, a front and back platoon versus a lefty-righty platoon. If you recall, we saw Dave Roberts, horrible defense, crushes lefties, has a nice batting average versus righties, 283. Santo is also symmetrical, but he's symmetrical without much punch at all. So it seems like first 2 or 3 at-bats in the game will be Roberts, then Santo will come in and mop up at the end of games. At third base, in kind of a front-back platoon instead of a left-right platoon. All right. Houston announced Cedeno and Tommy Helms earlier. Boston announced Yastrzemski and Bill Lee earlier. Texas added Jeff Burrows in the 1st round. And this time, we have a rare retro improvement. That's right. This means you have a guy in a future year and you want to send him back into time a couple years when he's significantly better. And that's the case of Paul Lindblad. His ERA was 3. And now his ERA is 2. And this is that last year with the Oakland A's. And that will really be a zinger in the American League West this year. Because remember, Oakland is in the last year of their dynasty. And they don't get this Lindblad card. Division rival does, Texas. Smart move, and most likely, after this 1 year of tormenting the Oakland A's, they'll revert back to the 76 card next year. So clever roster manipulation for the Texas Rangers. Boy, having a nice draft. All right. Philly needed a number 4 starter, and after seeing Sonny Siebert going earlier, that's the guy they kind of wanted as a starter 7. I guess they settled here for Bill Bonham, who in the 4 years, this is probably his best of the 4 years. He's a starter 7, can pitch in 3 days rest, though less is more. You probably don't want that to happen. I like the out there, half an out there. An out there, does walk lefties. Reasonable card. The Cubs probably wisely put him on waivers, thinking they could find something better. And they did. They found Renko, first of all, earlier in this round. Otherwise, the Phillies would have taken Renko or Sonny Siebert. So you see the progression in this round when teams are looking for a pitcher this late in the draft. All right, the Giants. They needed a left-handed hitting catcher, and they stepped into another guy. You're seeing the waiver list. If you're wondering why we're seeing a lot of the yellow waivers, it's because it's year 1. Year 1 of waivers, it would be the best year of a guy who is placed on waivers. And it's mostly roster crunch. Teams would have liked to keep some of these guys, but there was no room on the roster. Bill Sadakis extends his career. They have Mark Hill, a right-hand hitting catcher, and who has a -1 arm. Bill Sadakis is a switch hitter. He used to crush homers against lefties and be so-so versus righties. Here he can get more plate appearances by being better on the right side than the left side, though he could play every day. And he could spell third base and first base also. So Sadakis continues his career, easily the best catcher out there at this time of the draft. All right, now we're down to the last 12 playoff teams from a year ago. The Tigers announced Al Kaline and John Hiller earlier. Arizona picked up Bill Hands off waivers earlier this time, and this is the first instance of this. Arizona placed Jim Merritt on waivers a year ago, and they pick him up. So this is one of those handshake agreements where early in the offseason, they tell Merritt, we're putting you on waivers, but look, if you go unclaimed, there's a reasonable chance we'll add you in the draft. And that's exactly what they did. Not particularly good at all versus here, but they just need him on the left side. They have another lefty reliever on their team, so Merritt's protected. Just a lefty versus lefty situation. All right, the Twins took Tony Leva and Bobby Valentine earlier. The Pirates took Willie Stargell, Ramon Hernandez earlier. Told you I'd get you out of here quick, folks. Get out there and throw the baseball around or something. This video will be done soon. Oakland took Reggie Jackson and Sal Bando earlier. The Ohio players, they needed a player. They needed a DH versus lefties. And Alex Johnson, another waived player, has that written all over him. Talk about DH. This is a guy, if they had the DH in the 1960s, this guy probably would have played, a couple more batting titles. Alex Johnson, ace-stealing 1-17 runner in his mid-30s here. Power versus lefties, pretty balanced split. A DH for the Ohio players. Nice acquisition. Again, in-division rival. Alex Johnson played for Cleveland last year. All right, the Mets added Bud Harrelson and John Lowenstein earlier. The Reds announced Tony Perez and Jack Billingham earlier. We're down to the final 4 teams. Baltimore, they made this trade earlier, we reported on it. They reacquired the rights to Bob Reynolds, and he'll get his final year back in Baltimore. If you're wondering, they had a 73 card for a year, but they packaged it away to the Expos to get Kenny Singleton. And the Expos couldn't hold on to Reynolds anymore because they had Dale Murray. He was traded to the Angels. Angels didn't really need him anymore. They had a full bullpen, and so he's back in Baltimore. He's just kind of ordinary, frankly. No extra base hits on the right side is what they like about the card, but you got the homers on the left side to deal with. Again, it's just 1 year with Baltimore, and then his career will be over. Atlanta took Darrell Evans and Hank Aaron at age 40, announced earlier. The Dodgers took Tommy John and Willie Crawford, announced earlier, and in one of the most obvious moves of the whole thing, way back in the first round when Dick Allen was taken, the White Sox should have taken Wilbur Wood then, but they decided they wanted to think about it. So they told Wilbur, why don't you go out to dinner and come back a little bit later? And so, Wilbur Wood is sort of like Aaron Rodgers, so that day he was drafted sitting in the green room for 8 hours. Wilbur Wood is, of course, finally added to the White Sox roster here with his 74 card. And what we like about it is the out here on 4-6, and the fact he's better against righties than lefties, and that he doesn't have to be the best lefty on his team. Jim Cott can be that. And he doesn't have to be the best starting pitcher on his team. Bart Johnson can be that. That was sort of the formula the White Sox used down the stretch a year ago in helping them win the World Series. So that is the rest of the draft. However, we got a huge video tomorrow. Undrafted free agency, the token round of the draft, and we'll go into the details of how that is constructed, how we go about doing that. And what we have to do is we have to replace all the green players who were improved in the draft, of which there are a lot. There's 2 on that page. 3, 4, 5, 6. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28 for Garner. 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34 guys. That's a lot of guys. That means instead of 640 players being present here, you only got 606 guys here. So 34 guys off the street added to rosters, plus teams finagling their rosters. If they have a guy on the roster they don't like, but they couldn't cut him earlier, they can cut him now and sign a guy off the street. I think I got last year's, yeah. Last year's list looked something like this. And that's only 27, so we increased that. 27 guys were improved a year ago in undrafted free agency. And this year it's going to be 34 guys. And then the token round looks something like this. There is a token system used. And then we have to do a sort by tokens and then by rankings, and then teams ultimately pass when they're all done. And only then are we ready for opening day. So check out the token round undrafted free agency as teams complete their rosters. All right, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.